Amy Howe, co-founder of SCOTUS blog, joins me now on Skype to talk more about Judge Barrett's expected confirmation to the Supreme Court. Amy, welcome back. So good to see you again. Judge Barrett's confirmation would give conservatives a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. When is the last time that we saw that kind of composition on the high court? And also, could that impact cases before the court?
You'd have to go way back to the 1930s to find a conservative majority that's that solid. And I would expect it to have a really solid effect. You think of all of the decisions that we've seen in the last couple of decades involving 5-4 decisions in which one of the more conservative justices, like more recently Chief Justice John Roberts or Anthony Kennedy or Sandra Day O'Connor, crossed over to vote with the liberals. And now you've got a solid 6-3 conservative majority. And so I expect to see the effects of this majority in cases involving issues like abortion, gun rights, affirmative action, voting rights, probably regulation of the environment. I think the list really goes on and on.
Amy, do we know how soon she could be seated once she's sworn in, and also how significant is that to upcoming arguments?
I think she could probably get started working very soon. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, was confirmed on a Saturday of Columbus Day weekend and took the bench on Tuesday morning to hear oral arguments. She'll get a little bit more of a break because the Supreme Court's not hearing oral arguments this week, but there's a conference on Friday of the justices to decide what cases they're going to take up in the future. And then the justices will be back, not in the courtroom, but hearing oral arguments by telephone on Monday, November 2nd. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to have her be participating in those arguments. And there's a couple of big ones coming up in the November session. We heard a lot during her confirmation hearings about the oral argument, the challenge to the Affordable Care Act. But there's also a big argument before you get to that on November 4th involving the Catholic Social Services and its battle with the city of Philadelphia over whether or not the city of Philadelphia can cut off referrals for foster care to Catholic Social Services, because Catholic Social Services will not work with same-sex couples. And so that is a case on November 4th in which I think that having a ninth justice could very well make a difference.
As you know, there have been questions raised about failing to late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat so close to the presidential election. Can you talk about what we've seen in the past when it comes to filling Supreme Court vacancies during a presidential election year? And also, how does this compare, and what did the historical records show?
Sure. It's been you have to go back to 1988, the confirmation of Justice Anthony Kennedy, to find another confirmation during a presidential election year. And this one was unusually close to the presidential election itself. Justice Ginsburg died on September 18th. You'd have to actually go all the way back to 150 years to the presidency of Abraham Lincoln to find a vacancy that had occurred that close to a presidential election. In that case, President Lincoln actually waited. It was after the death of Chief Justice Roger Taney to fill the seat. So, it is unusual to have a vacancy this close to an election, certainly.
I mean, we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to get to this last question. As we've seen, Democrats have been opposed to the nomination really since the beginning. As someone who follows the court, what are your thoughts on the increasingly political nature of the process? And frankly, how do you think the public perceives it?
I think the public perceives it as this sort of kabuki dance, much like the senators do, where there's a lot of discussion, but not necessarily learning a lot about the nominees, the idea that people go in with sort of predetermined views. I think that there's been sort of a downward spiral where each side says, well, the other side started it, or the other side was bad last time, so we're going to behave badly this time. It may take more people like Senator Murkowski, and you just had the clip saying we're going to try to salvage the process and move forward to try and restore a little bit more of the nonpartisanship to it.
Well, Amy, we always appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much for coming on. Amy Howe, co-founder of SCOTUS blog.